Hello everyone. Today we will go through hierarchical analysis in XLMINER. We will take one example in the program. We go to data mining, help, example models, forecasting, and we will go to utilities. This one. Okay, so we open it. This is the data set we have, and we will run hierarchical from data mining, cluster, and then hierarchical clustering. We make sure the range is selected. We select all the variables. We hit next. And here, because we have some of the data here, so we hit normalize to get all the data on one scale. And what I will select the group average linkage here. Hit next. I will select the default 10, and we will talk about this. Number of clusters, I will select 4, and also we will talk about it as well. We hit finish, and I get these spreadsheets. This one is the first one, description of the variables. I already have it in case you want to know the meaning of x6, x7, etc. This is the original data. Now this is what we got from the model. So we can see the basic information, the variables we selected, number of records, and the clustering method here we used, how many clusters we selected, and also if we did normalized or not, and the maximum number of leaves in the dendrogram here. Okay, now let's talk about the data here. So here, let me show. Okay, now the idea about the stages here, if I talk about the first example, stage 1, you see what you see here, number 12 is actually the record number 12. Okay, so the record or in number 12, so we have it here. Okay, I will have the screen, the windows like that, so we can see a comparison. So as I was saying, that stage 1, this is the initial stage, and we see that record 12. If we go here to record 12, this is record 12. Okay, and we see record 21, and this is record 21. And during stage 1, actually, the record 12 and 21 were found to be closer together. Okay, this is why they were grouped together, because you see the distance here. This is the lowest distance comparing to others, so this is why we have it here in a group. Okay, and this is 1. Then the system will calculate again and will take stage number 2. We have the record number 10 and number 13. So we see number 10. Let me select another color, and number 13. So he says that these two records are also the next closest to each other after the first one, and so on. So again, what you see here, 14 is the record 14, this one, with the record 19, record 19 1 by 1, from the smallest distance to the biggest one. Now, if we talk about stage 21, we see that we have record number 1 with number 8. Let's see number 1. It is here. And number 8. Okay, so these two records are grouped into one cluster because also they are within this group. Now, this is mainly how the stages are working until nothing more to be done in grouping the data to the lowest distance. We hit now the second spreadsheet here. This spreadsheet has all the data from number 1 to 22, and then it defines the cluster for each data, okay, for each record. So we selected when we did the model that, hey, we have 4 clusters. Now the data we have was arranged to 4 clusters. Okay, you can select one by one. This is cluster 1, and the cluster 1 has these data. If we look like record 20 here, I mean this is record 20, and it is categorized as cluster number 1. If we here select number 2, we have one record as number 2 here, number 3, and number 4. We have one record. Okay, now under each cluster we see that we have subcluster. So if we select cluster number 1, we can see also subclusters. Okay, and we will see it in the chart, but I want to show you here that the maximum we have, the maximum subclusters we may have, is 10, and this is the 10 we selected when we run the formula, the model here. Let me show you here. So if we go and select data mining again, cluster, hierarchical clustering here, next. So here we see the number 10 we selected. Now if I select 5, hit finish, and we go here, we see that the maximum number we get is 5. So this is the idea behind the maximum number of leaves. Okay, now let's go to the first one we did. So this is the first one. We talked about the stages here, like stage 1, this is the distance, and then how the records are classified to cluster and subcluster as well, and what the meaning is for each cluster. Okay, it is just like a group. You can rename and you can name the group as you like based on the data and your knowledge, domain knowledge. Okay, now we talk about the hierarchical dendrogram and what the information we get. So we click here and we get this chart here. We will try to explain what it means, but before we explain this, let us get the data here for the stages. Let's put it here. And also let us get this one just for comparison. Okay, so we see this chart here. So what this tells here is actually, if we remember the maximum number of leaves, it was 10. So these are the 10, almost we see them here, and this one is the distance. So if you look to this graph here, you see that the shortest one is this one, then this, then this, then this, okay, etc. Now you see leaf or subcluster 3 and 8. So this is here 3, this is cluster 3 and 8. Okay, so this is the header, and you see the data is, or the record is number 3 and number 9. Remember this. Now what this tells that the subcluster 3 and 8, you see the difference between them, or the distance, is 275, and it is here. So this one shows the distance. So you can estimate that this is just before 2.8. You click here, you get 275. That is the distance, and this is the shortest distance. And let's see the record, the 3 and 9. So if we go and look here, record the 3, this is record the 3, and let us change the color. This is record the 3 and record 9. So you see they are both under same cluster, So that is the cluster here. We have two subclusters. We have number 3 and number 8. This is number 3 and number 8. Okay, and that is why they are under one cluster, and they are close to each other here. Let's take another example. This cluster, we see number 1, number 5. We will take this as number 1. Let's change the color. This is number 1, cluster number 1, and the cluster or subcluster number 5, this one. Okay, we see that the distance for this is a 3.1. Okay, so this is the cluster, and we go and see the data for record number 1. This is the record number 1. It is under cluster 1, and see also record number 6. Number 6 is under the same subcluster or main cluster number 1. So this is another cluster. Okay, now the same thing here. If I take a bigger one like this, 6 and 10, so let's take 6. So 6 is this one. Okay, so this is subcluster 6, and 10, so this is 10. Okay, this one. Okay, you see now here it is more than 3.64. Okay, that is the difference or the distance between both, between this 6 and 10. Let's see the records here. So 6 and the cluster 10. Okay, we see that the data, if you take record number 7 and 17, let's take number 7, this one, and 17, this one. You see that they have the same cluster. So that is the grouping as hierarchical grouping, and you see that you have like a tree where you know that, okay, so this 6 and 10 a sub, they are under one cluster. Why they are not under the same cluster? Because they have the same or the second lowest or the lowest distance, and they are classified as cluster number 3. Okay, so if we go back and see main cluster number 1, okay, and how many subclusters, we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 5 and 8. So if we need to see them here, we see number 1, we see number 2, we see number 3, we see number 5, we see number 8. So these are really the ones. If you look to this is mainly one cluster from 3 to number 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you see this is really the full cluster number 1. Okay, and these are the 3 of the subclusters. And you can have also there is a limitation in XLMINER, the one we have, to have just 10, but that is the concept. Now if you click here, you see that the distance 364, 364, and we can take this between the records. So that is the records here between cluster distance. Okay, I will take another cluster number 2. So number 2 here, you see that we have, if we see just number 4, we look number 4, so this is, and you see it is just alone. Okay, alone here, so that is just one cluster. It is, the main cluster is number 2, subcluster is number 4. So that is, if we look, as we said, this one here, this is cluster 1. Here we look to cluster 2. Let's see number 3. Under number 3 we have 6 and 10. So you see 6 and 10, this is one cluster. So now we covered every 3. So this is 6 and 10 is cluster 3. So if we name those, again, this is cluster 1, this one is cluster 2, this one is a cluster 3. Let's see cluster 4, and this is cluster 4. We have 7, 9, so this one, so this is cluster 4. So these are all the clusters, okay, for the data we have. And here the difference for the data, and you see this is 4, 6. This is here, you can see it here for the stage, for the last stage with the distance. Thank you for watching.